guys, it's Amanda with Healthy House on the blog, and I am here with another weekly tip on creating an indoor environment that supports your health and wellness. This week, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about pesticides and where they are in our homes, how they're getting in, and why it's so important for us to remove these toxins and prevent them from coming in as best we can. So I kind of started this blog post and video by doing a lot of research. I knew that toxins that were in pesticides and chemicals in man-made pesticides were bad, but I didn't realize how many places in our homes that pesticides and chemicals from pesticides are. It's not just our shoes that are tracking pesticides in, it's also coming from our textiles, our clothing, it's coming from our produce. And when our bodies start to get bombarded by a particular type of toxin or a chemical over and over and over again, that's when we start to see a lot of problems. I think the thing that's unique to pesticides is that not only are we coming into contact with them topically, children especially, but also adults are ingesting a lot of pesticides, and then it's also getting in our dust, and so we're breathing it in. And so the contact is threefold. It's the three things that we talk about all the time: the toxins that you ingest or take in, the toxins that are on you and you absorb through your skin, and then the toxins that you that are around you and you inhale. And so pesticides is hitting all three of these check boxes. And so I thought it would be a really good topic to kind of cover when we're creating, this environment of health and wellness within our homes where we want to reduce these toxins. So how do we prevent it? How do we get it out if it's already in our homes? That's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to take you through some slides that will go over this week's blog post. If you are someone who really enjoys looking at studies, I have a ton of studies linked in this week's blog post because I was doing all the research firsthand. So if you want the studies and the links to different things that I'm referencing in these videos, head to the blog post. If you're someone who just likes to read it and really digest it instead of watching the video, then I would also encourage you to go to the blog post. I have it linked at the bottom of the description of this week's video. Otherwise, let's get started and really dive deep into pesticides and getting them out of your healthy house.
All right, you guys, so let's take a look at where pesticides are found in our homes. I think it's important to understand that pesticides have really become a regular part of life in our farming and gardening practices. So as with many tactics, products, and solutions that we've been using for years and years in the United States, we're suddenly finding loopholes in that solution. So what was once a way to preserve the hard work of farmers has kind of turned into a very serious health concern affecting more households than I think we realize. Natural pesticides and organic pesticides are great alternatives, but that's probably a change that only you can make within your home. And what we're finding are that there are more pesticides coming in on our food, our clothes, our furniture than a lot of us have ever thought about. So when I sat down to look at the sources of pesticides that we allow into our homes, I was really surprised and a little taken back. And so I thought that this would be a great way to offer you guys a lot of information and kind of start the conversation of how do we prevent pesticides in our home. So some food for thought, why do we even need to learn about pesticides in general? So I think that the best way to start when you're looking to create a healthier home environment is understanding the toxins that you're trying to reduce. It's going to help you make very conscious decisions, and you're not just going to be following someone's advice blindly. You can think for yourself and make the decisions that are best for your family. So first, we're going to take a look at what even is a pesticide. So a pesticide in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. A pesticide is any substance that is intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any sort of pest. So this could mean that you use something totally natural and organic, and it's still called a pesticide. So a pesticide also includes insecticides and herbicides, products that kill funguses. Most pesticides that I'm going to talk about here are created to be UV resistant. They are made with ingredients that really don't break down very easily outside, meaning they really don't break down inside of our house. This means that pesticides have a very long life and can be left on food we eat, clothing we wear, in wood products that we bring into our homes. Pesticides also contain chemicals that are used to attack the nervous system of living organisms. And when the nervous system is attacked, it causes them to die. This is like the whole idea of a pesticide. They're used in almost all farming practices, from our produce and food to our clothing and textiles. Pesticides are even used to treat wood products that we bring into our home. And to be honest, when I started to look at where pesticides were in my home, it kind of began to feel overwhelming because there were a lot of different places. A pesticide product that you purchase at a store, so if we're talking about pesticides that we're bringing into our house, it'll usually only list the active ingredient. However, there are also inert ingredients within the product as well, and these ingredients can make up over 95% of the product, yet we won't know about it. So I think really the safe thing to do is find something that's a natural solution where you know all of the ingredients or you have made it yourself. So let's kind of talk about the health effects of pesticide exposure. I think one of the biggest problems with pesticides is that we're exposed constantly and through various different forms of exposure throughout our day. So the three main ways we're exposed to toxins are through our food, on our skin, and in the air we breathe. So a pesticide is going to check all three of these boxes inside of our home. So this means that we're not only exposed in a variety of ways, we're also kind of being overloaded by this exposure because it's continuous. Children are at an even bigger risk for exposure because they ingest chemicals that are in the dust more than adults. This is due primarily to their hand-to-mouth habits, but it's because ages 1 through 4 spend an average of more than 20 hours a day indoors, and a lot of times they're on the floor playing, and this is where dust tends to be. So a national study from 2010 showed that children ages 8 through 15 were almost twice as likely to be diagnosed with ADHD when pesticides were detected in their urine samples. That's huge. Another study published in 1998 linked children with pesticide exposure to an increased risk of childhood cancer. And this study followed exposures that happened in homes, schools, through drinking water and food. So all of the things that we're talking about here. In men, pesticides have been shown to decrease the quality and mobility of sperm and also contributed to altered reproductive and endocrine function and disorders. So there was a study done in 2008 that points to general fertility issues in men who were exposed to pesticides. The study does account for men who generally applied pesticides, and it doesn't necessarily address constant home exposures. But it is a risk. Women, and specifically pregnant women, are groups of greatest concern because insecticides are created to attack the nervous system. First trimester exposures, this is when the nervous system is rapidly developing in a baby. This is a time of great concern, as discussed in a 2004 published journal that I've linked in this week's blog post. So pesticides have been linked to an increased risk of developmental defects and stillbirths. All of these links are in this week's blog post, so you can read the actual studies if you'd like. But I'm going to go on to a couple more. In women, pesticides have been shown to disrupt the hormonal function of the reproductive system, as well as it has a link to ovarian cancer. It has also been shown to disrupt the thyroid function and inhibit the central nervous system and kind of cause it to dysfunction in a way. There was also a control study done in 2008 that linked pesticide exposure to an increased risk of Parkinson's disease. And there was a 2006 study that also was more long-term in linking it to Parkinson's disease as well. So these are some huge health issues that pesticides are being linked to. So let's find out where is it in your house? How do we fix this, right? So the University of Missouri published a page all about pesticides and the environment, and I have it linked for you guys because it's very fascinating. And specifically, it's about how pesticides can get into our water sources through runoff, through leaching in soil. Drinking water is a huge source of pesticides in many areas of the country. And you don't have to live in a rural area for this to be true. And you can even be drinking city water for this to be true. So what you can do is filter your water. I have linked in this week's blog post the Berkey filter. This is one you can put on your countertop. This is a great option. You could also look at a reverse osmosis system, and then be sure to check out my Healthy Water Workbook, which has more information about drinking water and how to protect yours. The next source of pesticides in your home is cotton. So cotton that is farmed for textiles and clothing is treated with pesticides most of the time, but it is also being modified. So there are versions of cotton that are not, your grandma's version of cotton, and they've been altered to withstand high concentrations of pesticides. So they're being treated with more and more pesticides, and they're coming into your home. BT cotton is another type of cotton that was created and genetically altered to be more resilient to pests, and it also poses health problems. Most of the cotton that we wear is probably BT cotton. There are over 70 million acres of this growing across the world. So what you can do to offset this in your own house is to purchase organic cotton clothing and textiles. It's the key to limiting exposure through skin absorption. At the same time, it can also you could address your textiles, your bedding, your towels, and I have links to some resources for you that can help you find organic cotton that is affordable. The next area that you can try to avoid pesticides would be in your food. So I will give you the disclaimer, I am not an expert on food. I am actually still learning so much about food myself, secondary to the environment in my home. And one of the ways that we bring pesticides into our home is through our food. So pesticides are commonly used in farming practices related to growing food. The residues from pesticides can be found in most of our everyday foods, from beverages to produce to the feed given to animals when they process them for meat. Pesticides have been detected in human breast milk samples as well as in urine samples, meaning that it is an almost constant exposure between all of the different foods that we are consuming. So what can you do? You can buy organic and unprocessed food. Now, I will say that just because you are buying USDA organic produce and food does not mean that it is completely void of pesticides. So there are more regulations as to which pesticides can be used and how much of it is used. So you're still limiting it, but avoiding processed food is definitely going to be an important thing for you and your family. Purchasing organic produce is also a way to reduce it. Our family likes to shop at Thrive Market, and you can find a lot of better options there. If you're going to buy meat, we want to do free range. I would recommend the book Food by Dr. Mark Hyman, which will help kind of break down what you want to be buying for food, because like I said, I am not a food expert, and if you're looking for more information, head to the blog post where I have some links to some much better sources than myself, but this is a way we can avoid pesticides in our home. Another one would be in our dust. So almost all house dust contains some levels of insecticides and pesticides. A 2006 study showed this, and I have that linked in this week's blog post. There was also a study in 2003 that showed that there was an increased dietary exposure to pesticides due to the transfer of pesticides from household flooring to the surface of foods. This was more of an issue with children, but the transfer did pertain to all family members in these studies. So how can you prevent this? Well, first would be implement a no shoe policy. A large portion of environmental pesticide exposure comes from our shoes. So it's a good idea to start with a no shoe policy to create like a functional entry space to keep shoes out of your living spaces. Second would be to remove the dust. So you can do this through dusting. Keeping your dust removal efforts up can help eliminate and reduce pesticide exposure throughout the home. This is especially true if you have kids. Kids ingest more dust than adults because their hands are in their mouths more often and they spend more time on the floor. So to remove dust, we want to use a damp cloth, dust on a regular basis, use a vacuum that has a HEPA filter and you vacuum on a regular basis, and then use a wet mop on hard floor surfaces. I also recommend the Medify Air purifier, which can help remove tiny particles that get missed. And the last section we're going to look at is using actual pesticides in your home. So using a spray to kill or prevent bugs of any kind can directly impact your indoor air quality and the health of your indoor environment. So not only are you adding the pesticides to your home's surfaces, but there's a significant amount of overspray and surface transferring that can happen when you're using this. So to avoid this, we want to use natural bug and pest solutions. I love using Earthkind Stay Away pouches. This has been a great product for our house. I have a blog post that I did just on this because I thought it was such an amazing thing to swap out in your house. And I have links to that in this week's blog post for you. When you're treating indoor plants for pests or fungus, make your own natural and organic pesticide. And I also have some good recipes linked for you as well. So if you are looking for links to any of the studies, the products, the references that I'm talking about in this video, you can head to the link in my video description. And kind of as a final thought, I want to just reiterate, it might feel like pesticides are everywhere. And I know that can feel scary, but instead of focusing on the fear, empower yourself with knowledge and the fact that you get to be in control of your home. Don't forget that there are transparent and trustworthy brands and knowledge-filled individuals who are on the internet as far as like blogs or social media goes, and they can help you along the way.
You guys, thank you so much for hanging around with me today while we talk about pesticides and we talk about creating a healthier indoor environment in your home and everyone else's homes. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I do these videos every week, and every week we cover a different topic or a different way that you can create a healthy environment at home. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment here or send me an email. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another healthy house tip on creating an indoor environment that supports your health and wellness.